And we start off here. This is the distribution in which, at the extreme, the leader is the dictator. He requires no other comrades to go with him. So 1 to 4, and the leader wins. In this case, then going over here, here he needs 1, and so forth. This is the flat distribution in which the leader is the leader in name only. Oh, I'm sorry, this must be a 7-person group for there to be 4. So here he doesn't need any comrades. Here he needs 1, here he needs 2, and here he needs 3, just like everybody else. That's the simple unweighted majority rule, leader in name only. And it's pretty easy to see that the distributions get worse the more you centralize, despite the fact that the leader's competency draw is coming from a much better distribution than the competency draw of the individuals. So, I mean, obviously these are just simulations, or as they're called these days. Now this is computational modeling. Just simulations, and we need to do a lot more sensitivity testing and so forth, and maybe try some analytical results to see how robust this is. But we think already these numerical examples suggest that the 2 errors might be quite different, might be quite asymmetric. The 2 errors, of course, are giving a really competent leader too little power versus giving a not so competent leader too much power. If the regime is under-centralized, the leader was in fact much more competent than the others in the governing coalition. Napoleon, for example, was supposed to be the most brilliant person in the French government of his time, although, as we remember, he still led his army into Russia and came out with 30,000 out of the 500,000 that he started with. So if the leader was, in fact, much more competent than others in the governing coalition, then the system wastes some of his brilliance. That's true. But it's got a backup in this error. And the backup is still the Condorcet mechanism, the multiple independent minds working on the same problem. On the other hand, in the other error, if the regime is over-centralized, then it is vulnerable to the mistakes of a not-so-brilliant leader, and the backup isn't so good precisely because it's over-centralized. You don't have the backup of the power of multiple independents. One of the requirements in Condorcet's original theorem that we continue to use here is independent errors. And one of the things that you get with deliberation is correlated errors. And so, although it's true that if you raise something, I often have this experience in group meetings that, you'll raise something I hadn't even thought of. And that's clearly, a kind of information aggregation that's benign. But another possibility is that I infect you, in a sense, in another part of the conversation with a belief that turns out to be wrong. And I make the case persuasively, and then your judgment at the end of the day is correlated with mine. So how those 2 things net out needs to be explored.